everyone. Welcome to Infinite and Wellness, where you find everything health, wellness, and consciousness. I am your host, Noelle, and we today are going to go deep, deep, deep into the healing realms with amazing, beautiful soul, Amiee Boswinkle. And she is an intuitive trauma coach. She is a Reiki master. She's a speaker and a published author, and pretty much just the most beautiful light you will ever see. I am so excited to bring her in today because she is going to bring so much light to this show and so much wisdom to you. So I can't wait to bring her in, and I just want you to stop for a minute and take this hour and enjoy what you're about to hear because she is a master in her craft. Welcome, Amiee. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing well, Noelle. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm so excited to be here and to share with your audience today.
Oh, well, I'm so excited to have you here. You are such a beautiful light, and you are really, truly just bring joy to everyone that you meet. And so I'm honored to have you on the show. So tell us a little bit about what you do. You have a vast variety of things that you do. I know that you're a trauma coach, and you are a Reiki master, and you are a published author and a speaker. So you have so many things that you bring to the world and so many different platforms that you bring your gift to the world. So tell us your story and how you got there.
I honestly thought that for many, many, many years of my life that I was a nobody and I was going to never amount to anything. I am very young. It's 3, 4, 5, somewhere right around there. I was sexually abused by a family member, and they told me to never tell. And so it was then that I lost my voice. Somewhere right before that, I can remember my grandmother who had cancer. She was dying of cancer, and she was living with my grandmother. So this was my great-grandmother living with her daughter. And I remember we would go over there every Saturday, and I remember my dad every Saturday morning telling me, "Now, Amiee, when we get to Grandma's house, you can't go in and bother Mama because she's resting." And I would say, okay, and we would get in the car and we would go over there, and I would wait for all the adults to get involved in conversation in the kitchen because I knew eventually that they would. And when they got involved in conversation and coffee and just talking and catching up, I would sneak down the hallway and go into Mama's room, and she had a little porcelain antique nightlight that you turned on by like pushing like a side button. That's like dating me, but it was like you had to push the side there. And she would wake up and she would pull me up into bed and we would talk, and there was an angel that I would see in the corner of the room, and the angel would tell me the message that she needed to hear because she was passing away and she was really scared. And I would tell her that where she was going, that she was going to have no more pain, and that there were people there waiting for her, and that they loved her, and that even though she left, the people here would always love her. I was just forever giving her the messages because I knew she was afraid. And I knew it helped her, but I knew it helped me too. And it wasn't really too long after that the sexual abuse started, and I lost my voice and my gift was dimmed. I've always known that I've had a gift. I've always been incredibly intuitive, but I didn't really know how powerful that was until I started to like wake up a little more, and that's farther on down my journey. But I went to school, and because I had lost my voice in first grade, I couldn't talk. Like I literally could not talk to the teachers. And so they thought that I was a special needs student, and I got sent to the special needs classroom. It was there that I learned for the first time that I had a love of helping others, because there I kind of thrived because there were very few students, and I was able to go around and help them, and I just kind of feel lit up. But those teachers noticed that I didn't belong in those classrooms, and I was sent back to the regular classroom. Somewhere along the lines in there, I created this story myself. I was never told this, but I created a story that I was stupid and that I was fat and that I was ugly. And I carried that story, that very deeply ingrained story, with me throughout many, many years of my life. Of course, we fast forward to high school, and we all have our story of high school, but being shy, and I had a whole bunch of cystic acne on my face, and that story that I kept telling myself just got more and more ingrained. And kids are kids, they just say what they say, and so some of their words would just hit me, and I'd hold them in and take them in a little stronger and just feel that stupid, fat, and ugly story a little bit more. Somewhere in there, I started to develop body image issues, and in time I developed severe binge eating disorder. When I graduated from high school, I didn't understand this. I remember the other students being like, "What's your class rank? What's your class rank? What's your class rank?" And I'm like, "Well, what's a class rank?" and they were like, "Oh, it's like where you're graduating in the amount of people that are, in your class." And I was like, "Oh, that's interesting. Where can you find out?" And they're like, "You can just go to the guidance counselor." And I went there, and I found out that I was graduating 13th in my class of 186. And I still didn't know what that meant. And I still considered myself very stupid. Fast forward now to college, and in college, all of that just kind of compounded, and I started to drink and use drugs. My parents were for me going to college, and I wanted to go away to college, but we didn't really have a lot of money. There were a lot of arguments over money in my household. My mom was she was a registered nurse, but she was a prescription pill addict. She was addicted to opiates, and I really didn't understand that when I was young, but because of that, money went places that nobody knew. So we were always having not always, but we had our electricity turned off at times. We had our water turned off at times. There were 3 different times in my life where the county sheriff's department showed up and told us we were so overdue in our house payment that it had been turned over, and we had so many days to get out of the house. And by the grace of a higher power, my dad found the money so that we could stay in the house all 3 times. So in me going to college, my parents supported it 100%, but they said that I had to figure out how to do it on my own. So when I was in college, I went to school full time, and I worked full time, and I became a partier full time. I was always able to hold it together though. Like I wore this like proud badge of honor that like I was a functional alcoholic, that I could, party all night and get 2 hours of sleep and get up and go to class all day and then work all night and then do all my papers and all the homework that I had to do and turn around and do it again and do it again and do it again and pay my rent, and all my bills were paid. While I was in college, I was renting a home with some of my roommates, and I woke up in the middle of the night to my bedroom on fire. The entire bedroom was on fire, and I had to like run through the doorway that was on fire, and I lost everything I owned. I was a writer at that point. I think that I had been a writer my entire life. I think that was the only way I knew how to process my emotions. And it wasn't the material items that I necessarily missed losing in the fire, but it was my pictures and my drawings and my journals that really devastated me. And it was then that I vowed I would never write again, because that had been taken away from me too. And so I delved into alcohol and drugs even deeper. And I ended up graduating from high school. I mean, there's some other stories in there too, but I ended up, graduating from college, not high school and college. And by the time I graduated from college, my drinking had gotten to the point where I was becoming suicidal very frequently. I started to attempt suicide, and I was in and out of psychiatric wards. I was put on prescription medications, given mental diagnoses. Of course, I had friends who did interventions with me. They wanted me to quit drinking. I was a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde drinker. I was one person when I was sober, and everybody loved that version of Amy. And when I drank, I became a completely different person that nobody liked and nobody wanted to be around. I was miserable. I hated who I was. all I wanted to do was die. I got to this point where all I wanted to do was die, and multiple suicide attempts in my 20s, in my mid 20s. By the grace of God, I lived through those. Tried everything under the sun, prescription medication, traditional, conventional medicine treatments, inpatient, outpatient, detox centers, AA, NA. Those things I tried with my whole heart. It wasn't like I just went into those things and I just tried them. I mean, I really wanted to get better, because at that point I was starting to get DUIs. And by the time I hit my third DUI, I was looking at spending a year in jail. I totaled my car. I lost my job. By that point, I was hanging out with gang members, and I was traveling to the projects in Chicago, buying heroin. I became an intravenous heroin addict at that point. And I ended up in the psych ward again because I wanted to quit using heroin. And I had just been in rehab not that long before. It's hard for me to, like, time eludes me a little bit, but let's say it was like between 6 and 12 weeks earlier. And as I was detoxing in the psychiatric ward, I remember the doctor coming in and she said, you're going to have to go to, to inpatient detox. And I said, no, I'm not going. She said, if you don't go, you're going to die. And I said, well, then I'm going to die. I'm not going, because I've tried that and it doesn't work for me. So it was that point I never went to a doctor after I detoxed off of heroin. I never got medication for it. I never went off of methadone. It would take me 30 minutes to walk up a flight of stairs. I would literally have to lift up one leg and set it down on the step, and then lift up the other leg just to walk up a flight of stairs. It would take me 30 minutes. I would still go to work. I had absolutely no energy, but I walked through that on my own without medical, conventional medicine treatment, and got myself to, it took probably about 6 months before I started to feel better, and probably about a year before I had energy back and I started to heal my body at that point. After I got my third DUI and I lost my job, it was by the grace of God. All my family had turned their back on me at this point, and nobody wanted to be around me. And my parents, out of the kindness of their heart, said that they would allow me back into their home one last time, under the condition that I had to have a job. And 3 blocks away from their home, they weren't willing to drive me anywhere. I didn't have a car. I totaled it. And 3 blocks from their home was a health food store where I was hired. And it was at that health food store that I studied the human body nonstop until I understood what was going on with me, and I was able to heal myself. At that point, the angels started to come back to me. I am only speaking my story here, friends. I am not against conventional medicine or treatments in any way, but the angels started to come to me. I was taking prescription medications. I was considered psychotic and borderline personality disorder, and some anxiety disorder. I had those 3 diagnoses at that point, and I was taking a lot of, whatever medication they prescribed for those things. And I was walking home one day from the health food store, and I remember the angels coming back to me, and they said, you need to come off that medication. You don't need to take it anymore, and we'll show you and we'll tell you how to do it. And I said, okay. And so they taught me the program of how to be able to wean myself off of it, and then start to put in, the nutritional supplements, and changing my diet and adding water and exercise and all those things. And my life started to turn around. I wish I could say I worked at that health food store for, I think 12 and a half years. And I wish I could say I stayed sober from alcohol. I never used heroin again, but I wish I could say I stayed sober from alcohol during that time. But I didn't really understand, even though I had healed my physical body, I didn't understand that I had to heal my mental and my emotional body. I didn't really understand what those things were. So there were times whenever I was under a lot of stress that I would binge drink for small periods of time. and then go back to being sober, just because I didn't really know how to deal with life and life's problems, and things just felt so heavy to me at times. In time, I learned more about energy medicine, and I started to study, chakras and things of that nature. And I went to a health coaching program, and I started to learn the principles of NLP, neuro linguistic programming. And it was then that all thoughts and wants and desires of drinking completely and totally went away. Like, I was able to see myself at full value, and I had an awakening. I had lived in a lot of shame. I had lived in a lot of guilt. I had lived in a lot of fear. Even though I had transformed my body, I didn't tell anybody what I had been through at that health food store. 2 people knew, but really the majority, there were probably 30 employees, if I had to guess. On average, 2 people knew my story, and I was too afraid for anybody else to know who I was. They just knew that I was Amy, who was the good worker, and she was really sweet, and she was really quiet. She was very knowledgeable, and all of the, customers who came in, they really enjoyed having conversations with her because of her knowledge and her skill set and being able to guide people and helping them with their health. But as I was going through my coaching program, something awakened inside of me, and I woke up one day no longer one version of Amy, and I became another version of Amy. During the time that I worked at the health food store, my mother overdosed on her prescription medication and passed away. So we're coming up on her 11-year anniversary in heaven. And I never got to know my mom sober. But I know she's with me. But I know that everything that I went through was for a reason, to help other people. And when I had that awakening, I saw the power in my story. I didn't live in the shame of it anymore. There was a lot of shame that I had to shed. But I had people who were a lot smarter than me and had a keener, sharper eye than me, and they said, your story is your most powerful tool. And I thought, wow, I never heard that before. What do you mean? Your story is your most powerful tool. And I really took that in, and I thought, wow, I've got a story. Have I got a story? And so I just started to share it. And I'm honestly an incredibly introverted, very shy person by nature. But I pushed through that because in that awakening, there was something greater than me that had come forth. And this new version of me emerged, and it just knew that in my story, even if people just heard my story, that great healing could occur from it. And so I pushed through, and I pushed through, and I pushed through, and I pushed through, and I kept sharing my story, even though every time I shared it, a little piece of an old version of me died. And it felt very, very painful because that version of me was very afraid. So it was very, very painful as I was going through this awakening. But I just kept telling myself, if you can make it through heroin addiction without going to a doctor, without using methadone, without using all these things, if you can make it through all the things you've been through, you can make it through this painful emotions just coming up and out of me. And so I just used that mindset, and I made it through, and grown a coaching business through that, help people who suffer from trauma, PTSD, and addictions create peace and power within their mind so they find it in their life. I've gained even more connection to consciousness. I've met amazing people like you on the journey, and got introduced to a public speaking competition called the Next Impactor, which is where I met the beautiful Noelle that all of you in the audience know, and I get to love and adore now too.
Yeah, it has been a journey for sure on the Next Impactor. It's a global competition of impactors making a difference. And what I have noticed most about the competition is every one of us have a story, right? Every one of us have something that we came from somewhere of pain, and we've all had a space to speak in the world. We've all had a space to build ourselves in the world. And what an amazing story. And thank you so much for being vulnerable, because you have really tapped into your soul by telling your truth. But moving from pain to purpose. And I think that may be like the theme of the impactor, right? Is so many people have had traumatic experiences. You and I both know that my background is, I was sexually abused. My dad was an alcoholic. My dad died of cancer. My mom got cancer. My dad died of a heart attack. And my grandfather died of cancer. My dad died of a heart attack. My mom had cancer. So through pain, we have found our gifts, right? And through healing, we have found our gifts. So let's talk about that, because I think that that's really, really important for our viewers to understand, is that through the pain, on the other side of the pain really is your purpose, right? And I teach that all the time, and I say that all the time. But in the depths of the pain, it's not very easy to say, oh, I'm going to be, a TV host, or I'm going to be a public speaker, or whatever it may be that we have led to from this space, right? And so what are your thoughts on the process of healing? Because that truly is like when they're in the depths of the pain and they can't see, they're in the darkness, but they can't see the light. They can't see that they've gotten to their purpose. On the other side of it is always joy. It's always happiness. And if you choose love and you choose healing and you choose health, I promise you, it's always on the other side. But getting there is the hard part. So maybe tell our viewers a little bit about the process of healing and what it takes to go within. I mean, they're so tired of hearing me say, everything external is really only everything internal, right? And
Yes.
so tell us a little bit, because your process of healing was very organic, right? It was not through the paradigm of society, what everybody believes the healing should be, right? So tell us maybe what you do to coach people through the pain, that are in the depths of the pain right now, before they actually get to the purpose.
Yeah. So when we're walking through the pain, and believe me, as Noelle just so beautifully spoke through that, it is a process, and it can be very, very, very dark in those moments, and you may not know what lies on the other side, and a lot of fear may load up. So what I generally do whenever I'm working with clients is I ask them, to connect more to their heart rather than their head, because what I found that is logic and what seems analytical and what seems linear, there's actually another space that when we tap into that heart space, the truth lies there. And if we can just be quiet and be still for a moment and tap into that part of us, it's always speaking the truth and giving us the guidance so that we can walk through that. Now, in doing that, it sounds like it's a really simple process, and I absolutely know that it's not. But to get to that space, it also requires us tapping into our personal power. So I work with people through energy, very similar to Noelle and maybe many of you who walk through this, but I help to explain what chakras are to them and connecting to their solar plexus chakra, their third chakra, which is all about personal power, and digging into that that motivation space, or that space of like, you want this more than anything. And it's that fire, it's that drive, it's that powerful force of nature that we all have, that just knows that beyond a shadow of a doubt that we actually can get through this if we have the right guidance. Sometimes some of us need guidance. I know I've needed lots of guidance in my life, right? If we have the right guidance and the right support and the right accountability to get us through the journey. I've just found that tapping into that space, the personal power, and believing in yourself, number one, because what I find, and that what I used to do in my life, is that I believe that that power or that validation came from outside of me. It came from other people. But when I learned to become still
and get out of my mind and tap down into my heart, that my heart was always speaking a truth that I could trust. It was scary at first because I wasn't used to thinking with my heart, but my heart was always sending the right signals, and that if I felt afraid, then that meant I had to dig into my personal power, because what I learned on my journey is I either wanted to change more than anything, no matter what loaded up, no matter what, or I just like the idea of the change right now. And once I saw it that clearly, like that made the first time it was told to me that way, I was like, wow, that's like really crystal clear there. And I was kind of guided out of the fog, or guided out of the mud or the fear or the darkness. And I was like, and I would always tap into that and just remember, like, why do I want this? What makes me want this? And then reminding myself, okay, I said I want this. I've made the decision. I want this more than anything, and I'm going to go to any length to have it. So that means I'm going to have to do things that seem counterintuitive. That means I'm going to have to trust in myself. That means I'm going to have to trust in somebody else who's been in that same situation before me and what got them out of it. It means that I'm going to just have to trust my heart space. Or I had to shift onto that other side and be like, do I just like the idea of this right now? And that space was okay too. Because if I could stand in either space, then I could get rid of the guilt of not being good enough. I could get rid of why do I keep messing up? Why am I bad? Why do I, it isn't about us being bad. It's just making a decision or a choice that what we want, we're making a very crystal clear decision that we're going to go to any length to have it, no matter what. Or we just like the idea of it right now, and just stand on one side of the line and own it. Either space is fine.
I love that. And owning your authenticity and owning who you are and knowing who you are. And I say all the time, if something is pulling you in a direction and if it brings you joy and it lights you up, and you feel good when you're doing it, that's the direction to go in, right? If you don't feel good, or you're looking for outside sources as drugs or sex or love or whatever it may be to fulfill you within you, that's never going to be, you're going to feel empty always, right? Let's talk about forgiveness, because I think that coming from a space of being in so much pain, I think for me, I teach that forgiveness is one of the greatest healing tools you can have, but not only just forgiveness of the person that has hurt you, but the circumstance, and then ultimate radical forgiveness of forgiving yourself for being in that circumstance, right? So tell me your thoughts, and the viewers the thoughts about like how you get to forgiveness of yourself when, for me, when I realized, oh my gosh, I actually have been creating this. I'm the one that's doing all of this. And of course, it's very, very hard to say a 3-year-old has chosen to be sexually abused, or a 6-year-old had chosen to be sexually abused. But forgiving the situation and forgiving yourself for allowing it to affect you your entire life is what I teach, right? And so, we get to stand in the fact that we can't change what happened, but we absolutely can change the effect of how it has affected us in our lives. And to get to that, I always teach forgiveness, because you have to forgive completely, radical forgiveness for all of the pain that you've ever gone through. And part of it is that you chose to stay in that victim mentality, right? Of the circle of the victim, of the prosecutor, the hero, or the victim. There's always one of the three, and you're always in one of the three, and you're looping through that. And when you break that and you get to forgiveness, that's radical forgiveness. And that's when you have the true healing within you. You want to talk a little bit about forgiveness within yourself and how you got there?
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely lived in a victim consciousness for many years. Once it was presented to me, and I started to really take that in and understand how I was the creator of my world, and I was the one who was creating, my external reality, and living in the shame and guilt of what had happened. And honestly, it was easy for me to forgive probably 20 years before I forgave myself. I was able to forgive the person who had abused me, because in my 20s, I knew that it just came to me one day that person had probably had something similar happen to them. because you don't just arrive in a space of just doing those things.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew that in order for me to move forward with my life, I had to forgive that person. But the person, like you said, Noelle, the person that I had a really hard time forgiving was myself.
Mm.
And like, what could I have done different, or how could I think differently, or how could I get through this, or how could I stop drinking, or all those different thoughts that go through all of our heads whenever we're trying to process information and give ourselves forgiveness. So for me, I did a lot. I started to journal again after many, many, many years. After declaring I was never going to write again, I all of a sudden, it was just like, I couldn't stop it. It was like flowing out of me, and I had to write, and I had to get it out. And I started to just journal a whole lot and write myself forgiveness letters, as if I was somewhere on another planet or somewhere on a deserted island, and I was going to receive this letter, and I would come back to it and read it in time, this forgiveness letter to myself, for all the things that I had, done to myself and thought of myself, and treated my own self. And I started to slowly, connect back to myself. I lived in this really disconnected state between body and mind. Well, my mind really ruled my world, and I felt like I was a prisoner to my mind for a really long time, and my body was like a completely different entity. And in that journaling, it was like the alignment came and all the connections were restored. So forgiveness of self, I personally find there was a realization, I think is the right word I'm looking for. There was a realization that once I forgave myself and I looked back at Amiee and who Amiee had been and who Amiee was, that she was just really powerful. She was really strong. She was really worth loving. She was really amazing. And those were words that I could have never have said about her for a really long time. And I just said, Amie's got a story, right? Like that version of Amiee has a story that she can share with other people who are suffering in silence, and don't know where to go and feel like they're completely and totally lost, and, hate themselves in whatever way that they hate themselves, because I completely and totally understand what self-hatred feels like inside. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. But my process of getting through it and connecting to that power within was just, my gift is writing. It's just what it's always been, and it had to come back. I had to just let go of I guess another thing I had to do is I'm a perfectionist. At least there's a version of me that was a perfectionist by nature. And that if I wasn't doing things perfectly, it really loaded up an anxiety in me. And I had to let that go and allow myself to just be good enough in every given moment. And when I allow myself to be good enough in any given moment, then I could forgive the part of me that said, I will never write again, and allow myself to write again, because we get to change our mind anytime we want to.
Exactly. That's true. And I always say that there's, the law of polarity exists for a reason, right? Everything exists, and the opposite has to exist. If something is showing up in your energy fields, the opposite has to exist, because that's just science, the law of polarity, right? And so if you're living in fear or victimhood, or you're living in anger, forgiveness, joy, love, abundance is always on the other side, because the vibration's already there, right? And so in the quantum field of infinite possibilities, there is so much to choose from, but we get every day. And sometimes it's a conscious choice all day, every day, to make that choice. I'm just going to do this one thing that's going to be better today. I'm going to do the one thing to be the best version of me today, and making that one step, and then going from that one step to the next step gets you to forgiveness, right? It gets you to being the whole person, because the vibration is always there. Nothing would ever show up in your world, in your external world, if it's not going on internally, but nothing would ever show up if the opposite wasn't there as well, right? And so if you're living in hate, or if you're living in guilt, or you're living in shame, the opposite has to exist, and you get to choose where you want to be. right? And so that is something that I teach all the time, is the mind-body connection, and being connected to your body and being within, and the internal guidance system that we do actually have, that if you tap into that, it could lead you on the right direction. You want to talk a little bit about, because you're super, super, super spiritual, I know that, and I know that you get downloads from, your spirit guides and your angels, and as I do as well. Let's talk about making the mind body connection, and when you are out of rhythm in your life, how you're out of rhythm with your mind and your body, and it's not connected.
Oh my goodness, isn't that the truth? Yeah, yeah. I've come to this space of practicing enough. I've practiced for a really long time in my life, being out of alignment for many years. And so once I started practicing, being in alignment, it's much easier to find whenever I'm a little bit out of alignment. And so you said that really beautifully, Noelle. Whenever I'm going about in my life and I get out of alignment, and usually it's right before I'm about to up level and just become my next level version self, because because I'm like, okay, I'm ready for more, and so the universe is like, okay, here you go, right? And then
It's so true. It's very true.
Right. And so as I'm walking towards that, there's going to be some fear, because when you're shifting and growing and expanding and becoming a bigger, brighter version of yourself, it is scary. And so there's some fear in walking forward, and the only reason there's fear is because our mind doesn't understand what lies on the other side of what's going on. So now I've just practiced the skill set enough to know that whenever I'm in that space, I'm just like, oh, wait, Amy, okay, yeah, you asked for this thing, you're about to get it. So I just know that I need to tap into habits that make me happy. So I like to run. I do things that actually raise my vibration so that I feel happier. Because when I'm happier, then the downloads come and I feel safer, and I know that everything's going exactly the way that it is. So running really helps me. Journaling helps me. Spending time outdoors. I like to travel to new places. I like having conversations with friends. So I know that whenever I'm out of alignment, the only thing I need to do to tweak it is I need to create or come back to a habit that actually raises my vibration in my body to happiness or joy. And whenever I raise my vibration to happiness or joy, then it's really easy to just step right into that new space.
It's so true. It is so true. And I always say, what brings you joy, follow that and do that, right? I'm going to add one thing to that as well as is quieting your mind and meditation, right? And I teach meditation. And so prior to me meditating, I literally had anxiety. I was on medication for years, and I haven't taken a pill in 11 years, and I meditate every day. You and I both live this. Like, we eat clean, we we exercise, we eat clean, we're out in nature, we meditate, we live the life of and I never want to say purity, because that's not that's such a hard word to accept to some people, right? But we live organically, we truly live from our soul, and I think that that's the biggest thing, is what brings you joy. Go to nature, you pet your dog, go mountain bike, whatever it is that is your form of quieting your mind, do that, right? It doesn't have to be sitting in meditation and being like, oh, it truly is. Meditation is a form of just quieting your mind and changing your vibrations and changing the neurotransmitters in your brain to calm them and to actually get to a place of peace. And so whatever brings you happiness, whatever brings you joy. And so many people are like, I don't even know what brings me joy. And if you're at the level where you don't need joy, please reach out, get help from somebody like Amy, myself. But there's always an opportunity for you to get to a better version of yourself. There's always an opportunity to have a choice. And if you feel in the depths of the darkness and you don't feel like you can get there, there's so many ways and so many opportunities and so many people to help you. So to the viewers that are there, please, I honor you with all my heart, but please reach out to somebody, because you can't get help unless you ask, right? Unless you ask yourself, unless you ask the universe. God, source, whatever it may be you believe in, until you step into the fact that you're not the victim and you can change your life and you can choose a different vibration and you can choose a different life. Amiee is a perfect, she's perfect proof. I'm perfect proof. It exists that you can live your purpose from your pain. And I promise that for sure. So Amiee, thank you so much for all that amazing information. Tell us how people can reach out to you. Tell us what you have going on. I know that you are a published author. I know you speak. I know you're a coach. I know that you have a lot going on with this Next Impactor competition as well. So tell us a little bit about how they can get in touch with you, what your services are, and where they can reach out to you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. My business name is Connections Restored. If you're on social media on Facebook, my business page is called Connections Restored. You can reach out to me and on my personal page, Amiee Boswinkle. If you're on Instagram, you can find me at Amiee Boswinkle. It can also be found on my website, www.connectionsrestored.com, or you can feel free to email me at amikboz@yahoo.com. You can reach out to me through private message as well. If you guys are on Facebook, I have no problem with that. I create courses. I work with people one-on-one. I'm also a course creator. I've created, I think, close to 20 courses now. I host women's retreats for healers and people who are here to raise the vibrational level of consciousness and step into their next level self. Women who are here to just help their tribes and their people to grow a little bit, to let go of the fear and the guilt and the shame and wake up and stand in the powerful truth of who they are. Because this is just the time in humanity where we are here to shift and change the level of love or the level of vibration on our planet. We need a lot of healing to occur here. And I know that I was sent here and went through all those things to be a teeny tiny small part of that. And what an honor it is to have been able to walk through that journey and stand on the other side and connect with very powerful women on this planet. I also have a private Facebook group called the Village of Connections Restored. I've had a vision since I was 7 years old, a recurring vision over and over and over. It was a dream over and over and over of a land, of hundreds of acres of land where many healers live. It's called the Village. And I know I can't do this alone. In my dream, I see many people. I actually can tell you very vividly many parts about it. But I know that I'm here in this reality right now to create this before I leave. And it's hundreds of acres of land. There are multiple healers who live on the land, and it's almost like I see a pilgrimage of people coming to us. Just looking for healing in all different kinds of capacities. So it won't be too long from now, but that is my big vision. That is my big why. That's why I'm really here. And I just keep holding space and calling out to the other women and the other healers on this earth that are here to be a part of that. Because I know this has always been about we. This is not about me. This is not about Amiee Boswinkle. It has never been about Amiee Boswinkle. And I know that. I've known that my whole entire life, that this is about we. And this is a we consciousness. So it's going to take every single one of us to create the much needed change on this planet.
Well, I believe in all that you are, and you are such a massive, powerful force in this universe. And I thank you and I honor you for all that you do. And I know that retreat center you and I have, we have talked about often, and it is real and it is happening for sure, for sure. Let's give our viewers one life hack that they can use just to either one form of healing from Reiki or something from your coaching. One life hack that you want to give them that they can actually implement into their everyday.
Oh, you're putting me on the spot here. Okay, let's see. One life hack. I think this is one of my favorites when I heard it. I think maybe it's more of a concept, could be a life hack, but knowledge does not equal behavior change. So whatever it is that you guys want in your life, just because we know what's right and how to get there, it isn't going to create, it doesn't mean that we're going to get there just because we know how to do something, because knowledge does not equal behavior change. If you want something bad enough in your life, the only thing that's going to get you to that habit change or get you to that space where you are standing in your next level version self is by taking action and walking through the spaces that you need, that may seem scary, but that will get you to the other side of it, to where you're standing like in your joy and your power and your light. So knowledge does not equal behavior change, action does.
Oh, I love that so much. That is, it is, you know, we have to act in this human realm, and we have to move forward. And if we don't take action, then we can't move forward, right? And so I love that so much. Thank you, Amiee, for being on. Thank you. I honor you and all that you are, and I just love you so much. I truly, I mean, you are one of the gifts to this world, and I am so blessed to walk this journey with you. So thank you, thank you, thank you for being here. And to our viewers, if you are wondering where your health is, where your purpose is, where your light is, I promise you, it is all within you. If you look within you and you find that inner joy, you find that inner truth, and you live from your heart space, I promise every day, just moving towards that, taking action, even the smallest little action every single day, just like Amiee said, to being the better version of you, I promise it's all within you. I love you, and from the depths of my soul, I send you love and light. The light within me sees the light within you. Send you love and light, and we'll see you in the next video. Take care, guys.